Welcome in, everyone, to the Big Man on Campus podcast. It's Friday. I'm your host, Jeff. They call me the Big Man on Campus. I'm here with our boy Friday guest, Greg Peterson from VSIN. We'll go over the card today. A lot of things to look at. Not a huge card, but plenty of interesting games to chat about. Get some higher level games, in the Big East and other conferences. Then you have the old reliables, the Ivy League, the MAAC. You got an interesting game out on the West Coast with Idaho, Eastern Washington. A lot to talk about today. Greg, we didn't talk to you last week just because I wasn't able to do the show. It was one of the days. But welcome back. How you doing? How was your week?
Doing great. Great to be back. And first time in this new year. So happy belated New Year. Yeah,
good point. That's a good point by you. Happy New Year. Hopefully everybody 12 days into the campaign here's a bigger and better you, hopefully. But it's time to pick up the pieces, Greg. Last two nights I've given out losers. And you and I were talking before the show here, and I voiced my, disdain for the Mavericks of Texas Arlington. And I want to let people know, and you made a funny comment that I'm sure in the future here over the next couple of weeks, they'll, rail off like 8 or 9 in a row. But I think right now with this group, I don't think they're all mentally there, some of these guys. I mean, Eric Neal was benched in a game earlier this year. Kevin Hervey didn't start the game last night. To me, what that is insinuating as an onlooker is that this team right now maybe isn't all mentally there. There might be some things going on in practice. Maybe somebody's talking back, or I know Eric Neal is out for personal reasons in certain games. Whether that has to do with why he was benched, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that you get benched right after you're out for personal reasons. That maybe means to me he was insubordinate in some way. This team's just not very focused right now, and on the road, they just. You look at the last time they're on the road, you think, okay, well, this should be a bounce-back performance against a really bad team. But, I mean, they just were never really in the game. I mean, they start out the game, down, I think, 10-2. I don't think they ever led in the game. If they did, it was very minimal. A tough one here because, again, on paper, it looked like a really good play. But what are you going to do, right? We welcome in all the people out there. Thanks for listening. And, guys, again, I'm going to put the disclaimer out. You don't need to ask about if we'll go over a certain game. We're going to try to cover every single one. So keep that in mind here. On the year for me, 67 and 42 here, up over 20 units, 20.6 to be exact. So you're really just kind of stuck in neutral here. I've been pretty much average over the last month or so. So you're really trying to get on, and tomorrow's a big card. So look forward to adding some plays to the card and hopefully getting higher into the profit here. But it's been a good year. Peaks and valleys, Greg, in this business, as you know. What do you think of this card tonight? Are you excited about it? What are your thoughts?
I think it's an okay card for a Friday because Friday is typically going to be your most dull day of the week. You've got your MAC games. You've got your annual Horizon League game on ESPN, but you actually get a couple decent ones. I think Virginia Commonwealth versus Dayton should be a little bit of fun. You've obviously got Oakland back in action. And then I'm actually very interested to see what happens with Providence versus DePaul as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting game, actually, from a standpoint of, I'm not sure if people know this, but this game will be commercial free. They're actually trying out this all access thing where basically both coaches are mic'd up and you'll get to hear what's going on during the game, which is kind of interesting. I think they should do more of that. I've often discussed, having some sort of, we do it at SBR a lot, like betcasts and stuff, where you could kind of like, hear people discuss the game as itself. And it'll be interesting to see how the coaches do with this during the game. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit here. But if you're out there, hit the like button. I know many of you guys like when we have Greg on, and I do as well. So thanks all for listening, and hit the like button, comment, do anything you want. If you hate me, hit the dislike. Doesn't matter to me. But let's get into the card here and chat about what we're looking at. We'll start out with my play of the day. We're going to go to game number 835, 836. And this is a really interesting matchup because the thing on paper you look at this line, okay, and you see Illinois Chicago open up as a 3-point favorite. Basically what that's saying to you is it's a toss-up kind of game. Okay, immediately this was bet down. Milwaukee's now a favorite. You look at the betting numbers, Greg. I mean, most of the money's coming in on Milwaukee. So, I mean, it's not too surprising. I think what you have here really is just a case of your somewhat public bettors are looking at this game maybe from a standpoint of, well, Milwaukee has a better overall record. Illinois Chicago straight up hasn't looked good. That kind of thing, or it's just sharp money. We've made the point before, not just because it's sharp doesn't mean it's the right side. So I don't have a big real care about the money. I feel like I'm just getting the better team at a better price. I'm going to go with the home underdog here. When I can get Illinois Chicago, who I think is the better team, plus points, I'm going to take a shot with it. I had some good success last year with this group here. And look, there's been some growing pains with them. The one concern they had was for a while, Tarkus Ferguson, their point guard, was out. He was out with an injury. I think he's only played 8 games this year. But when he's in there, he makes his team go, really. I mean, you look at case in point, their last game. I mean, Greg, he didn't score a point, but he had 12 assists in the game. I mean, when he's in the game, good things seem to happen for this team. He steals the basketball. Yeah, he's a guy that is going to not turn the basketball over very much. That's something that they need on this basketball team, and they have some good players. I mean, this team last year was like I said, a good team for me, and that was mostly with Dikembe Dixon in there. He went out later in the year, and they weren't really the same team. But I like Ferguson back in there. I think that's a huge thing for them in this game, and they've been pretty good at home. I mean, they're 6-3 straight up at home. And people will mention their straight-up record, but we have to remember, with non-conference play, Illinois Chicago is a team that has really challenged themselves for the most part. I mean, you're playing you start the season, St. Joe's, you played IPFW, Kentucky, Troy, Loyola, Illinois, DePaul, Illinois State, Wright State. I mean, these are all Northern Kentucky. These are all possibly teams that can make the NCAA tournament. So you didn't play your, Valdosta State or something. You played high-level competition and you prepared yourself. So for me, I don't really care at all about their straight-up record. This is a home game for them. They're the much better rebounding team, and you're getting a team that has been very good on the defensive end. That's one thing about Illinois Chicago that I've been a lot more impressed with this year. Defensively, they've looked a lot better. They've really kind of made it a point to play better defense, and at home, they're only giving up 61 points a game. That's pretty impressive overall. You're also getting a team in here in Milwaukee that's really struggled all year to score the basketball. They've been poor from the foul line. That could be a big difference in this game. In a toss-up game, I'm going to go with, to me, a team that I've really had success with over the years, and I like them in this spot with Ferguson back. Give me Illinois Chicago +1. Greg, what do you think here?
At -3 for Illinois Chicago, I was thinking that I would just stay away. I'm thinking about really taking them at +1, though. I mean, I'm not seeing why this line is completely flipping. I know that UW-Milwaukee was able to pull off a nice upset win against Iowa State earlier this year, but this is also the same UW-Milwaukee team that lost on its home floor against D2 Concordia St. Paul, a team that went 6-25 at the D2 level last year. So this is a Milwaukee team that is very schizophrenic. You don't know what you're going to get from them. I know that they dealt with some injuries with Brock Stoll, one of their leading scorers. I know that he's back in the fold for them, but I do think that Illinois Chicago is a team that's better than their record indicates. They really underachieved towards the beginning of the year because many people thought that this was maybe going to be the 3rd or 4th best team in the Horizon League, but now they've really ascended the past couple of weeks. I do like the Flames in this spot.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how you don't really. I mean, it's, and one other thing, I mean, obviously, they have the big rebounding advantage in this game, but I just think they're the better team overall. Again, they've went through their growing pains. They've went through having to deal without their point guard. And look, Milwaukee's not been very good on the road either. I mean, they're 3-5 against the number, or 1-4 over the last 5 games to the number. So really kind of struggling right now. I think it's going to be difficult for them to score in this game. I look for, as long as Illinois Chicago doesn't turn the ball over at a high rate, which you never know anymore. Texas Arlington did it last night. I think they're going to go ahead and get the job done here. I'll take them +1 against UW-Milwaukee. Brian Seymour, I love when Greg is in. Great job. Hey, thanks, Brian. Appreciate you listening. Greg, let's start with one of your plays. Where are you headed and what do you like?
We're going to go with Canisius versus St. Peter's. I think the Canisius -4 is a very good spot here. Canisius 7-0-1 against the spread in its last 8 home games, have won 5 of their last 6 total. And this is a team that's finding ways to score about 75 to 80 points per game. They're going to be playing a St. Peter's team that really hangs its head on defense, but you take a look at St. Peter's, they've had some nice wins. I mean, they're coming off of just a complete dismantling of Quinnipiac, but let's face it, the Bobcats are a team in rebuild. They've got a first-year head coach. You know that they're not at 100%. This isn't the Quinnipiac that knocked off Oregon State a couple years ago. And then you just take a look at Canisius. I just really like the way this team is trending. They've been very good against the number. I don't think that people are actually realizing how good this team is. I think they're probably a top 3 team in the MAC. They're at home. They're only laying 4, which means that this is essentially a toss-up game on a neutral court, and I would take Canisius in that spot every time.
You know, I got to tell you, Greg, this was the other game that I really considered as my play of the day. I think you have a great play here. Really like this one. You know, St. Peter's is a team that I think is one of those teams that is really a total shell of what they were last year. St. Peter's is among the best defense in the country, had a really good home court advantage. But you're right. I mean, this year they just haven't been very good on the road. They've been really a struggle offensively. I like this Canisius team. They could score the basketball. They played better defense, not great defense, better defense. And St. Peter's is, you know, I know they hang their hat on defense, but they're about 10 points worse this year defensively than what we saw last year. I like your play here. I think it's a good pick, and I think it's one that will get the job done here. Big man on campus. I love your insight. However, I would like it if you cut down on the amount of times you say and though. Kay Burton, I'd like for you to cut down on the constant negativity. Unfortunately, Greg, when you live certain places, you are who you are. You talk the way you talk. That's just how I talk. So sorry. But I will consider trying to cut down on the ums. But again, it's my mind working. My mind's racing. Greg, as you know, it's not easy to go on the air and talk about basketball games off the top of your head. You know, me and you both do that, which we've talked about before. So when you're thinking about stuff, the occasional or comes out. We'll work on that. Let's move on here. Let's start up at the top, Greg, and I'll have you just stop me when you like one. Brown, Yale, I told you I'm not – you could probably name every conference, all 32 in the country, and the Ivy League is the conference that I cap the least. Just have never really been a big fan of it. So you and I both discussed we'll probably skip the Ivy League unless there's a play you really like. 821, 822, Butler Marquette. A lot of talk about this one. I chatted about this one on my show I do at 10 o'clock a.m., should be a good one here. Marquette's been really good on the road, under Steve Wojciechowski. And obviously, you know, they have the scoring prowess. I mean, Rousey, you know, everything, Howard. I mean, everybody they just really have done a nice job. And that's something they've always been under Steve Woj. Defensively, that's a bit of a problem for them. They're great from 3, good from the foul line. Butler definitely has a distinct advantage on the glass. I don't see any reason this game doesn't get into the 160s. Butler recently has been really poor defensively, especially in this conference. Both these teams go pretty quick, and they're good over teams for the most part. I'm mentioning I consider this over as well. Like the over. I'm all over it.
I actually like a little bit more than the over the side in this one. I like Marquette getting 5 points in this spot. Marquette is a team that I think is playing really well. I mean, we remember at the beginning of Big East play, they lose by 3 against Xavier. Then they follow that up with that huge overtime win against Providence. They just completely shelled Seton Hall a couple days ago. This is a team that's really good. Marcus Howard, we saw us go off for 52 points a couple weeks ago. Then you've got Andrew Rousey, who I think is one of the just most cold-blooded assassins in the country. I really like the way he plays. Sam Hauser's big. And what so many people forget is that at the end of the first semester, Marquette got a big man in by the name of Harry Frawling. He's a guy that came over from SMU as a transfer. He really ascends Marquette. So they're better now than they were in their non-conference. And they weren't too bad out of conference either. They lost a little bit of a heartbreaker against Georgetown, had a pretty good showing in the Maui Invitational. They were able to just wax the floor with a down Wisconsin team on the road. I think that Marquette +5 is a play.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little model on over the last 3 years, how many games in this conference have been decided by two possessions or less. I mean, this is a conference generally that plays some real good games. I agree. I think Marquette, they're not that typical, kind of bottom of the barrel, don't play any defense. I mean, that's what they are, but they really have some guys that are big time scorers in this league, and I like Butler, but they could be a little boring at times. They could be a little, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but and they've beaten up on Marquette. I think it's time for Butler or for Marquette to get a bit of revenge here. You look at this meeting. I mean, they've won 3 of the last 4, Butler. So I think it's time for a better Marquette team to maybe come in here and maybe pull off the upset. The problem is Hinkle Fieldhouse is a tough place to go and win, but you don't necessarily need him to win. You just need him to cover. Problem is the defensive end is going to be where I think this game's won, and I don't think Marquette's even close to what we think Butler is. So we'll see. A very intriguing game, though. Big man, how do you keep track of all these lower level teams and players? I feel like I know my shit and I don't know much at all, but these lower level teams, how do you have time? Well, I think Greg will agree, and he's he knows a ton as well. It's just putting the time in. I mean, I start this stuff in the summer. I've went through every single team in the country overall. It's just about, I think if you have a good memory, then that obviously helps. But I don't have much of a life. That's probably where, Matt. I mean, my enjoyment anymore is Greg going and get a haircut late at night, or go play dice at the barbershop. Whatever I do, play poker. You know what it is. Greg, question for you: do you and Amal Shah ever agree? Says Carlos.
It happens on a very rare occasion. From time to time we agree, but we like to go back and forth, and it makes it fun because typically he's right on 50% of his stuff. I'm right on 50% of my stuff, so we make a good team. If you pick somewhere in the middle of where myself and Amal are, you're probably doing really well for yourself.
There you go. Greg Peterson, Amal Shah, Ron Flatter, all those guys you can find over at VSIN. Thanks for doing the show again, big man. Good luck. No problem. Let's keep it going, Greg, or we'll be here all day talking about salutations from listeners. We thank you, though. VCU Dayton 3, 146.5. Greg, you mentioned this was an interesting game. I think it's time for VCU to put up or shut up time here. I mean, we're starting to get to the point where VCU's starting to look like a team that once was. I mean, Will Wade's long gone. Shaka Smart is way, way long gone. This team has had issues on the defensive end all year. Tell me why you think it's going to change tonight against Dayton.
I just don't think that Dayton's a very experienced or good team. I think that VCU is a better team in this matchup. And the opening line indicates that because Dayton was a 2-point home favorite. Now they're up to 3.5 in most spots. I do think that VCU would be the right side. I'm not necessarily going to pull the trigger on it and put like all my money on it, but I do like the way that VCU is coming along because I just think that Dayton's a little bit too young. They obviously have the brother of Giannis Antetokounmpo, but at the same time, he's very raw, inexperienced. You see Dayton get into a lot of foul troubles, and they have problems closing. I still remember watching them against Mississippi State in the early part of the year. Dayton makes this huge comeback. It looks like they're going to knock off Mississippi State. Then they just have some mind-blowing turnover. They allow Mississippi State to get the game-winning layup, and that's a loss for Dayton. And Dayton's also another team going off of that just does not take very good care of the ball. Meanwhile, VCU is one of those teams that they will pressure you for a full 40 minutes. I think that's going to play into the hands of the Rams, and I think they get it done here, plus 3.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not looking to lay the number with Dayton right now. They really go as Cunningham goes. When he doesn't play well, they don't seemingly play well. 825, 826. I know you have a play on this game, Greg. Detroit Mercy University, -5 against Youngstown State. The Penguins coming in here, as always, really struggling on defense. Though Cameron Chapman is questionable. Jaleel Hogan, I believe, is out for this game. What do you like here?
Jaleel Hogan is out. I think that Cameron Chapman's going to play. It looks like he's going to. He's right now listed as questionable. I'm obviously going to keep that in mind before I really fire on this one, but I should like Detroit in this spot. And Youngstown State is just one of those teams I've been fading all year, and it's worked out masterfully because Youngstown State couldn't cover a twin-size mattress with all the blankets in the world. This team is just allergic to covering. I don't know why it is, but Youngstown State just seems to get blown out time and time again. This team plays no defense whatsoever. Aside from Brandon Morris, they also don't have a whole lot of offense, which means when you have one player on offense and you've got zero defense, what do you really have as a team? Detroit's actually played a little bit better. They played a brutal non-conference schedule. They had to play the likes of Michigan. I still remember when they went down and played UCLA, teams like that. So Detroit is a little bit more battle-tested than Youngstown State as well. With the line being 4, it indicates that if this was played on a neutral court, Detroit would maybe be a half-point favorite, if not a toss-up. I would take Detroit in that spot.
Yeah, back to Dayton VCU real quick. Sammy Sharp's mentioning Dayton very deliberate with the ball, 307th in the country in possessions. They don't shoot a ton of threes either. Should the game stay under? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a game around the 70 mark for each team. I think it could be like a 72-67 type of game. It is kind of in the middle. You're thinking this is going to be more like an 80-75, 79-74 type of game. I don't know if I see that. I kind of agree with that in a way. But back to this Youngstown State team, Greg. I look at a lot of the time, not just defensive stats, but kind of the effective field goal percentage, that kind of thing. I mean, Youngstown State, if you listen to this is pretty amazing. Opponents are shooting the ball effectively against them 60.1%. I mean, that's horrid. I mean, that's among the worst I've seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of high numbers. I know North Dakota's fairly high. There's some bad defensive teams in this country. Citadel, but I don't know that Youngstown State's too far off. Both these teams are poor on defense, but Detroit at home, I'm a little bit more interested in backing them there. But I'd like to see Chapman in. Green Bay, IUPUI. I don't have a big feel in this game. Gun to my head, I'd take Green Bay. I don't really think IUPUI should ever be laying 5 points to anyone. They've kind of had a tough season to start their year out in Horizon League play. Any opinion on cellar dweller game here?
I would take Green Bay if I had to. They got Sandy Cohen, a Marquette transfer at the semester, so I think that's big for Green Bay. And keep in mind, they were able to get a nice win against Oakland a couple weeks ago. Oakland's one of those teams that's been hit or miss, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But if I had to pick this one, I would go with UW Green Bay. I'm keeping my eye on it, but I don't think I'm going to be playing this one.
Yeah, agreed. You guys are really good cappers. Great breakdown. Thanks, Russell. Appreciate it. I like the Friday Night Horizon League. Go UIC. Yes, correct. Do you have a Saturday morning show? Yes, every Saturday, 11 a.m. on SBR. Yes. When was the last time you bet an under? I do it frequently, actually. Smaller bets. And you're right. Good call on Sandy Cohen. Nice addition for that group. But I got to ask, how'd they let Kareem Cantor get away? That kid's really good. Against Villanova, he was, to me, the best player on the court for Xavier. Again, I know it's not always the school. Sometimes the player just wants to leave, but he's a really good player. Have you seen much of him at Xavier? He's a really solid big for that group.
Yeah, he certainly is, and I'm just more surprised that UW Green Bay got him to begin with because This is a Martinez catcher that we're talking about. Why in the heck is he going to Green Bay, Wisconsin? I used to live in Green Bay, and I can tell you there's a lot of other schools I'd rather go to than UW Green Bay.
No, I don't disagree with you there. Definitely an interesting place to end up, surely. But good to see him getting some play. He's on a good basketball team. Hopefully they can make some noise for him there. Let's keep it going. A big man, I'm curious. Why do you only go with one play a night instead of a few games you like? Says Drew Howda Show. Well, I don't always do one play a day. Saturdays I usually do more because I'm in profit and I'm not going to – I don't need to give it back. And again, I will – once March comes, I'm going to have a lot of plays. But right now, my goal is to make a unit a night. That's how you have to make money in this business, unit a night. And most of these weeks I'm up. So it's a long-term thing, as you know, Greg. Less is more. Quality over quantity. And that's my goal. 1 or 2 plays a night, try to hit a unit. Let's keep it going here. Cleveland State, Oakland. Oakland's interesting because, some nights they look really good, and then some nights they look really bad. I know in their previous game they were basically the same spread against Youngstown State, and they weren't able to get the job done. I just don't think they're good enough defensively, Greg, to delay 16 points. Cleveland State, though, I mean, I think they're going to get better. They couldn't be much worse over the years with that group. They had a couple good years with Norris Cole a couple years ago. Bryn Forbes was there at one point, but they were just I think if they could score 70, they'll cover in this game, but they're another team that plays is poor defensively. Oakland can really hit you hard if you're not watching. I think this game could go over the total. I think 157 might be a little too low. Oakland should push 90. If Cleveland State can get to 70, I think we'll see a game go over here. This might be a little too low for Oakland University, Greg. They're a really effective offensive team, and they don't play any defense as it is either. So I think if Oakland has refs that like to call fouls, I think this game will go over because Cleveland State can maybe hang in the game with some free throws. I'm looking over in this game, frankly.
Yeah, this game is a hard pass for me on all aspects of it because we actually saw Oakland play like 5 minutes worth of defense against Northern Kentucky. It's like the only defense they played all year long. But at the same time, I have zero faith in this Cleveland State offense. I don't know if they're going to make it to 65, to be honest with you. So I think the only safe play in this one is if you really want to bet the Oakland money line and make like 2% on your money. There you go. Oakland should win this one easily. I don't trust them to cover. I don't trust the over. I don't trust the under.
Yeah, Greg, while I'm on that subject quickly, I've tried to educate people. People ask me all the time, like, why do people bet huge money lines? Like, what's the thought process behind that? And the comments always, well, because you can make in 2 hours, if you put 50K in a game, you make 2,000-3,000 in 2 hours. That's way more than you make with it sitting in the bank. Do you ever see any of these bridge jumpers? And have you ever talked to them? I mean, what's their reasoning on it?
I've never actually talked to one, but you hear stories all the time from the bookies at the South Point that they're saying like, oh, this guy put $75,000 on this like minus 15,000 favored or whatever, and I'm just there like, what are you doing? Because the potential loss is so huge compared to the game. I just don't understand it because these are 18 to 22-year-old kids we're talking about, people. You don't know what you're going to get from night to night. Heck, some unfortunate breakup could cause your play on Oakland to just go completely kaput. So it's one of those things I would never do. I know that there are people that do it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I've actually made the comment if I know I read today that a kid in Florida hit that Mega Millions lottery for like 280 million. I'll admit, if I had money like that'd be the only way I would bet, honestly. I mean, it's when you have money like that, I mean, it's better than what it's going to earn in the bank, and it gives you the rush, it gives you the energy. I mean, I think a lot of those guys really just want some excitement in their life. So I hear you, but I think that's the reason they do it. It's very rare that those kind of games lose. So, and I know listening to Jimmy Vaccaro, I noticed the new thing nowadays in Vegas is to go on an NFL Sunday with 30, 40K, find 2 9, 8-point favorites, parlay them together, get back, let's say 40, you win, 15 back or something. You make 15 quick thousand again playing the Patriots and Steelers. From what I hear, that's the new big thing out there. So, your risk is high, but the chances of losing are a lot lower as well. So that's a good point. But you're right. Sometimes they do lose. Your Concordia University beats, Milwaukee once in a while. But you made the comment here about Oakland. It's pretty rare they're going to lose. But last night would be a perfect example. Say you take Texas Arlington straight up last night and said, they ain't going to fucking lose to Little Rock. Well, they lost. They lost by double digits. So, hey, it happens. But 16 could be a lot. I mean, especially with Oakland. I mean, they don't play good enough defense to me to lay this kind of number and feel comfortable with it. I lean over. Ohio, Kent State. Any opinion on this game?
This is a total toss-up. If I really had to pick it, I would take Kent State as a pick just because they are at home. I think Ohio and Kent State are very equal teams. We saw Kent State be able to pull off a nice upset against Oregon State a couple weeks ago, but keep in mind this isn't the same team that had Jimmy Hall for so many of those years as well. So Kent State in a little bit of a rebuild. Ohio, meanwhile, they're a good team. They sometimes can get hot from three, and then sometimes they're just very cold. So you don't know what you're going to get from the Bobcats. If I had to pick this one, I would take the home team just because it is hard to win on the road in conference play. But I think that these are two very equal teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ohio's had some injury problems with Carter and with Dardis. I mean, they've had some major injury problems there. I don't have much in this game either. Penn State, Nebraska. Penn State at 8, total 140.5. Josh Reeves may or may not play in this game, which has been largely reported. Listen, I like Penn State. Plenty of Philadelphians on their team. A lot of good Philly guards there. They have Mike Watkins down low. I'm not a huge Nebraska guy. I've never been a big Tim Miles fan. The difference here is going to be on the offensive end. Penn State, obviously, the better team there. But I'm not sure I see 8 points difference between these two teams. What are your thoughts here, Greg?
Nebraska's been playing some good basketball. I'm seeing 8.5 in some spots. If you can get Nebraska plus 8.5, I'd probably take that. I'm considering this play myself because Nebraska, we've seen it. The transfers that have come in, like Isaac Copeland and company, they're actually making a big difference for Nebraska. They nearly knock off Kansas. I know that was a home game, but it still counts. They were able to take down Minnesota when they had Reggie Lynch. This is a much improved Cornhuskers team. And we saw Penn State lose at home to Wisconsin towards the beginning of Big Ten play as well. Penn State has the tendency to lay some eggs. So if you're looking at this one, I would go with Nebraska plus 8.5 or pass.
No, I think you're on the money here. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't see 8 points difference between these two teams. Nebraska plays hard. You mentioned some of the transfers. Copeland, he comes over from Georgetown. That's been a nice addition. 12-6 a game. You got to wonder how he got away. I'm not really sure. Explain that. I guess he was a John Thompson guy. I don't know. I wouldn't mind playing for Patrick Ewing if I'm a 6'9" forward from North Carolina, but hey, what do I know? I think this is closer than 8 points probably. We keep it moving here. Columbia, Princeton, no opinion. Cornell, Penn, no opinion. Greg, do you have any opinion on those two games? I mean, I'm not a big Ivy League guy.
Cornell's pretty awful, but Penn laying 9.5, I don't trust that, so that's a stay away. Princeton is a team that's been playing a little bit better lately. Columbia is better than the record indicates. This one I'm seeing at 9.5 and 10. I would say out for both of them.
Big man, I'm a Nebraska season ticket holder. Their offense is much better than it's been in a long time. Good point. I agree. And straight from the horse's mouth. Good point, Matt. You see them, I definitely generally like to hear people's opinions that go and watch the team every night. It's kind of like me with Temple. I feel like I have a better read on them than maybe other people do. Carlos Paroy, Greg, how is it to work with Brent Musburger?
It is absolutely awesome. What you see on VSIN.com is exactly how he is. He's very inviting, just a great guy to work with. I get to produce for him every Thursday. It's just like a little bit of a childhood dream of mine. It's really great. He always is willing to talk about his past and how he was like in the water boy and things like that. Always gives you good stories. It's a very fun, outgoing guy. I mean, it's just a total blast.
I actually forgot about that. He was in the water boy. That's a good opinion. I've actually made the case before, Greg, that I'm not a big Vern Lundquist guy. I think the only thing good he's ever done was Happy Gilmore, which you can say what you want about Vern Lundquist, but he was pretty good in Happy Gilmore. Here's a comment. Why bother with +1? Why not just bet the money line? Don't you say that in games under 2.5, you just take the money line? Yes. When I'm betting on a favorite, yeah, I do that. But when I'm getting +1 on a home court, I'll take the +1. In a 1 point loss, and the money line's not going to be worth it. I don't really care about 6-7 cents. I'll just take the +1. In a case they lose by 1, which is very possible, I push. I have a little bit better way in dealing with it. So I'll take the +1. On favorites, under 2, yeah, I'm going to lay the money line. Big man, just for the record, I will never ask you what your play is, even if I'm really late. I know how you say skip to the beginning and find it. Correct. Guys, the goal of the show is for me to have a platform to give out all the games that I bet, all the games, give opinion on every game if I can. And that's what I was saying with people giving out my plays on other shows. I want people to come listen to this show and to the show that we do on SBR. That's the reason I say that. I don't mind people sharing it. It's just I want people to come to the show and listen to it. Providence DePaul, very interesting line here. I've made the case before, Greg. This is a stone cold DePaul type of line here. Generally, when you have a one pick'em team on the road, and generally the team's better, I always go with the home dog. We saw it over the week with TCU, Texas. TCU obviously a better team on paper. No one will argue that they're not better than Texas, but sometimes spot-wise, you got to really like your chances. And I think for DePaul, I think this is a big game for this team. I mean, you look over the years, this team's really struggled to have any sort of notoriety. They have a new coach, Dave Lateo. They have a new arena there, Wintrust Arena in Rosemont there. I'm sorry, it's not a Rosemont. It's actually the South Side now. I think this is a really good spot to maybe back DePaul. Am I going into this game saying to myself, wow, this is a great spot. They are much better than Providence? No. But I think the line's really telling you here, DePaul's the play. It's a DePaul line. I think this is a huge game for this team. National TV. You got all the precedents tonight with the coach under the microphone, if you will. I think it's a great spot to back DePaul. And I like DePaul. Eli Kane's a great player.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I would play DePaul if I had to take this one as a pick. Because you take a look at DePaul, just last week they were playing against Xavier, or I think it was actually 2 weeks ago. They were up by like 14 or 16 in that game before they were just unable to pull it out. Eli Kane, very good player for this team. And Providence has been just absolutely ridiculously up and down this year. I still remember they needed a buzzer beater to pull off a win against Belmont. And this team nearly lost to Brown. I think they were taken to overtime by the Brown University Bears out of the Ivy League. And that's obviously not a good look. I know that they've been dealing with injury issues all year long. So this is a Providence team that has been bruised and battered. I would look at DePaul in this spot.
Yeah, and you look at the big elephant in the room here. DePaul is a really good foul shooting team. I mean, you can hang in games. We saw that over the week with the St. Louis Billikens. On paper, they were not as good as Rhode Island, but they hung in that game because of free throws. And when you can get on the line, you're a better rebounding team. You can hang in games. I've mentioned that all year. Free throw percentage is very big. And this DePaul team is not any, spring they're a good offensive team. They can hang in games. I'm totally on board here. I like DePaul in this spot. And again, this just isn't a spot that makes sense for me to bet Providence. I'm going to take a look here at the public splits here and see how much money's on them. They're definitely the public betting favorite, and the lines went down. It just doesn't make a lot of sense here. I agree with you. DePaul looks like the play. Let's keep it moving. A couple more here to go, and then we'll wrap the show up. We went over St. Peter's Canisius. Greg likes the Golden Griffiths there, minus the 4. Quinnipiac Rider. This Rider team's been in pretty good this year. Do I want to lay 12 with them? I like Stevie Jordan a lot. I like their coach. Quinnipiac getting better with Baker Dunleavy there. You got to ask yourself, is Rider good enough to lay 12 points? Seems like a couple too many. You're always going to get a pretty good rebounding team, though. This year, Quinnipiac really's been behind the 8 ball rebounding the basketball. But they're another team that can make free throws and maybe hang in a game. And if you know anything about Rider, they're a team that can't defend without fouling. You're going to put you on the line. They don't hit free throws themselves. I think this might be a little rich here for Rider.
I agree with you. I would not lay 12 points in this spot. If anything, I would look at under 160/159.5 just because Quinnipiac scored 52 points in its last game. Quinnipiac is a team that has had some problems putting the ball in the basket. I know that they've had some big games. They've also had some slow games. If you're able to get out first couple minutes, don't necessarily go Quinnipiac's way. I think that under would look really good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. Greg, this is actually a good question. It makes sense to me. I know I'm a big college hoops guy, but many know I cap soccer a lot, college football, different sports like that. What's your second favorite sport to cap other than hoops?
That is a good question. I'd probably go with the NFL. I was actually in the Westgate Super Contest this year. Got off to a really awful start, but like week 7 through 17, I think I was above 500 in 8 of those 10 weeks. So I had a good run in the NFL towards the back half of the season. So second best for me would be NFL.
Like it. Good stuff. Maybe before we go, we'll get your quick opinion on the division games here. We'll go two more here. Monmouth Niagara, a game a lot of people have talked about today. The concern I have here is this number opened 162. It's been bet down. The whole world seems to be on the over for good reason. Both these teams very fast. Niagara plays no defense. The concern I have for this game is Micah Seaborn. He's the guy that makes Monmouth go. And without him, they're a team that can stay in the 60s, unfortunately. That's just Monmouth. I get a weird feeling that everyone's going to bet the over in this game. And look, you're going to have to hold your nose if you bet the under. I mean, Niagara is hyper quick. Their guards, Scott and Dukes, are two of the more underrated players you're going to see. They might be two kids that could propel this group to the NCAA tournament. But without Seaborn's status, it's hard for me to take the over. I kind of like Niagara, but I feel like there's better games than a card for me to sit on the edge of my seat as I just pray that Niagara can string two stops together. What do you think?
I completely agree with you. Someone actually asked me if I really liked an over today. I said, first of all, I stink at overs. All the games I pick, if I pick it under, it's probably going to go under. If I pick it over, it's probably going to go under. I don't know what it is about me, but I am just the king of unders. I said that if I was going to pick an over today, it would probably be Monmouth versus Niagara, but I say that with very little confidence because you just don't know about Micah Seaborn. Until you know his status, I would say stay away from this game with a 50-foot pole.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention, I've noticed, I've tracked a lot of injuries this year as far as players that are questionable and may play. I've noticed a lot this year that most of the guys that might play, or maybe they're limpy or that kind of thing, usually end up playing. I've noticed that. I think a lot of it's just kind of hearsay, but there's a quote straight from King Rice, the coach at Monmouth. He said, Micah shot with us yesterday. That's all he's done for about 10 minutes. He shot yesterday for 10 minutes. That's all he's done with us. He's not been out here. He's not participated in any type of practice. Our trainer will tell me when Mike is ready. I deal with guys that are here. I don't hope for it. I don't wish. Micah will be part of our group. He is part of it now, just not basketball-wise. Obviously, we want him on the court, but when you're injured, it's out of our control. Again, this is big on this game to me. Without Micah Seaborn, I think the over is possible. Without Micah Seaborn, I think Niagara's a good play. But as a bettor, I don't want to sit on the edge of my seat hoping that they can get stops because their defense can make any college basketball player look good. So take that for what it's worth. It is also away from West Long Branch, which isn't helpful for the Hawks here. Last game on the card, very random, Big Sky game here. The Idaho Vandals heading on the road to take on into Cheney to take on Eastern Washington. What do you like here, Greg? Eastern Washington, a 2-point home favorite, a total at 144. It has been bet up. What do you think?
Idaho hasn't necessarily been the best on the road this year, but I do like Victor Sanders. He's a guy that can put up 20 per game. I really like the way that he's played for Idaho. And let's face it, Idaho is one of the better teams out there in the Big Sky. Meanwhile, you take a look at Eastern Washington. They've had their ups, they've had their downs this year. This is one that I'm going to stay away from, just try to get a little bit more information because the Big Sky actually has been pretty good to me this year for betting. I took Montana State yesterday. They let me down against Portland State. But, hey, the Vikings have been very good to me whenever I bet them. So I guess that's what I get for going up against the trend in Portland State. But this is one that I just don't really have confidence either way. Line's right now at 2.5. If you put these teams on a neutral court, I'd probably make it a pick.
I actually like Eastern Washington in this game. I'll tell you why. They have been really good at home over the last several years. You look at over the last 3 years, 31-3 straight up at home. They haven't lost there this year. They're 16-8 against the number over the last 24 in their home arena. They're the better offensive team to me in this game. They make their free throws 76%. I think they're the better team in this particular game because they've had a great home crowd. They've been really good on the defensive end at home. A big thing with Eastern Washington because, over the years, I mean, with Tyler Harvey and guys like that, they weren't very good on the defensive end, but they've really ratcheted it up. And the home stuff's important. I mean, they're really, really good at home. So leave that for what it's worth here as we wrap it up. Do you guys ever disagree on anything? No, because we are pretty similar cappers. And, look, when you know stuff about teams, it's not like you can fake that. You can't change it. The truth of the matter is him and I both know a lot of the same things. And, both most of the time the breakdowns are similar because we cap similar. If Greg was a guy that bet on line moves, I mean, we'd probably have very different information a lot of the time. Greg, we'll have you hang on for one more second. Couple questions here. People are asking here. There was one I missed. Actually, you know what? Before we let you go, quickly, what do you like in the NFL division games?
I think that Philadelphia getting 3 points right now is actually a good play. You got to take the 3. Don't take the money line on this one. But I think that Philadelphia is actually pretty decent with Nick Foles. So I would take a look at that. Obviously, the great defense. And Atlanta is not the offense that they were last year. The under has hit in so many Atlanta games this year. So I think that Philadelphia has a good chance to hang within that number. You take a look at Tennessee versus New England. If you're able to get 14 with Tennessee, which I'm not sure if it's going to go to 14. Right now it's at 13.5. I actually think there's value there. I think that Bill Belichick is going to win the game and everything like that. But at the same time, Tennessee is a team that they're getting hot at the right time. They were able to pull off the nice comeback against Kansas City. You got to think that that's going to carry over a little bit before they get drubbed in the second half. So I would say if you can get 14, Tennessee. If not, I'd probably stay away. Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's going to be out for blood. Right now, they're laying 7. I'd probably lay the 7, to be honest with you, because Jacksonville just did not look good in that game against Buffalo. Obviously, the defense held up, but Ben Roethlisberger's not throwing 5 picks again. And then New Orleans versus the Minnesota Vikings. I really think that this Minnesota team is a team of destiny. I think that they're going to be playing on their home field in the Super Bowl. I think it's the first time that ever happens. New Orleans obviously playing some good football, but this isn't the Drew Brees of old. Minnesota, meanwhile, Case Keenum. So many people are just here like, oh, when's Case Keenum going to blow up? Here's a newsflash. He's not going to. He's proved it time and time again that this guy's for real. They've got such a great defense as well. I think that Minnesota gets the job done, laying 4 to 5, depending on where you're looking.
Good points. Very good points. Greg, I will tell you this. I'm a diehard Eagle fan. I'll be at the game tomorrow. I'm not confident they can win this game. I think defensively they're very good. I think they're one of the more underrated defenses in the league, the Eagles. But I think it's going to come down to quarterback play. They're going to stack the box. They're going to tell Nick Foles, listen, beat us, and you can get the job done. But I don't think he will. Greg, there's actually an interesting thing coming out of this town this week that, according to a lot of people really believe that this is all a conspiracy and that Nick Foles and Doug Peterson are in cahoots and that they've actually been just playing very vanilla and that Nick Foles is going to be unleashed tomorrow to all of us. So keep that in mind. If Nick Foles comes out and is on fire, remember who told you. It's been a big conspiracy theory around these parts this week. How real is it? I don't think, but people believe it for some reason around here. Yeah, I agree with them, though. For me, I go Falcons. I think they win by 4, frankly. New England, I think, will roll 34-13. Jacksonville, I think, is going to get punted as well. Jacksonville, I said, is a fraud. I've said it for weeks now. I think we've seen the blueprint to beat them on defense, throwing screens. Like Greg said, Ben's not going to throw 5 picks. And then the final game, do I think Minnesota will win? Yes, but I think it's a 27-24 type of game. Give me the Saints plus 5. Greg, will possibly be overturned, yes or no?
That I do not know.
Yeah, that was a question by the listeners. I agree, too. I don't think any of us know that. Greg, we'll let you go. As always, great information. Looks like a nice sunny day out in Vegas. Hopefully you enjoy the day. Anything else before we let you go?
No, not really. Just continuing on my good work at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Always good to be on with you. And as always, my plays are always up on my Twitter at @GUnit_81.
Yeah, you do a nice job of answering questions. As always, guys, I don't really answer questions on Twitter just because I come on here to answer them. Greg, as always, thanks for tuning in and joining me today. As always, we enjoy always having you here on a Friday. As always, like I said, you don't have to hang around. I know sometimes Greg's very nice. He hangs around and waits for me to end the show. It's very nice, but you don't necessarily have to, Greg. I know you don't want to have to stare at me for longer than you need to. As always, man, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
See ya, buddy. Greg Peterson tuning in, joining us from Vegas. As always, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are very few people. The college basketball Twitter community is very uppity. They're arrogant, a lot of them. Many of them think they're God, which I agree. I do think I am as well. But I do think I'm fairly positive as far as giving info out. Don't ever have a problem sharing my info. Greg's one of the nicest people I bet in this business, and he's got a true passion for college hoops. So I really like his opinions, and he's good to talk to. As far as for me, I do want to end the show on a note of I want to shout out to all the great people that we have in this country. All of us have come from immigrants. I know I have. I've made it clear I'm very proud of my heritage and who I am, and I know a lot of you are as well. So we don't allow one pig-headed, arrogant person to describe who we are and what we like. I don't care where you're from, Haiti, Libya, Africa, anywhere in Africa, wherever you are. We need to be more compassionate in this country for different types of people. All of us come from people that have come and went through peril to get to this country to provide ourselves better lives. There's so many people I know in my personal life that have been through strife and back, through war. I mean, in Albania, in Kosovo, many people were killed, their heads chopped off because they were Albanians, not because they were, white, or not because they were this or that, because they were ethnic Albanian and the Serbian people didn't like them and thought they were underneath them. I remember when the Italians came to this country and the Irish, people called them dirty. They were subhuman, that kind of thing. People thought that about these people. We need to remember that just because this guy decides that he wants to make these ridiculous comments, let's remember to be compassionate. Let's help each other. Let's do this on our own, because obviously we don't have the leadership to take us that far, but we don't have to agree with it. To me, I think everyone should be given a proper opportunity to make themselves in this world. And, to call them things like that and to call where they come from things like that, I think it's an abomination. It's pathetic, really. I welcome and thank all of your comments, whether you agree or don't. I think we can all agree about that. And I've said it before, being liberal to me is not about being a certain way or believing certain things. Being liberal is just being an accepting person. You accept different people. You're not closed-minded. You don't shut people off because of how they look or how they, preach or whatever. That's what being a liberal is. As far as policy stuff, I don't think any of us disagree with any of this stuff. I mean, some of the stuff we all agree with. We want lower taxes. We want to be able to when we get paid, it doesn't all go to the government. We want proper health insurance. I don't think any of us will disagree with policies. But as far as being a liberal, it's not about me just giving everyone a free shake in life. Being liberal is a beautiful thing. It's about acceptance. It's about letting people live the way they want to and have that belief. And in this country, this is where people come to make it. It's a beautiful idea. A.J. Soprano said that in The Sopranos, and it was one of the better things he ever said. He didn't say a lot of good things, but there was a scene when he said that, and he was right. This is where people come to make it. This is where people come to handicap sports, or, be hippies, or, be a mechanic, or be a dentist, or, be a street performer. You can do whatever you want. And that's the great thing about where we live. But there are people out there that want to, I don't know what. They want to assault people because of their beliefs or how they think. We're not all made the same. That's the great thing about where we are. We all have that ability to believe and do what we want. So just remember, be nice to people. I know sometimes I'm not nice to people. I know sometimes I come off abrasive. I know that. But, we all have bad days. Obviously, I've heard people say to me recently that I think I'm better than people. No, I think that when I come on and do a show, I feel like I'm the professional and people are asking me for my opinion. So I do that. So just be nice to people. That's what I say. Accept people for who they are, not the way they look. So have a great weekend. I hope everyone enjoys the show and enjoys their night. It's a good weekend. Very nice weather around here. I know it's supposed to get cold though. I have to go get a haircut here late night tonight, and I know like right now it's 5:55 Eastern. I know around 11 when I go out to get the haircut, it's going to be bitterly cold, I'd imagine, or getting there. So everyone have a great night. I'm going to go get some sushi. It's my night to have some sushi. So you all enjoy your night. Tonight's play, the University of Illinois Chicago +1 against Milwaukee. Everyone have a great night. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks to Greg Peterson for joining us tonight. As always, we will see you tomorrow. SBR Forum, 11 o'clock a.m. Ian Cameron and I will get you through the Saturday card. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.